I have a quick question for everybody. In the retail space, homegrown review engines have been players for a long time, but not necessarily in the hospitality space. And I'd love to get everybody's thought process on building your own review engine that you host internally on your own websites and assets, and what your thoughts are of that.
We evaluated that. There's a whole believability issue. If it's your own brand, we want it independent, consciously, and not because of cost or anything. It just makes more sense that it's
Amazon or Best Buy can do that because they're distributing products that are made by other people.
That's right.
But in hotels, you're distributing
your own product.
At least the consumer thinks they're your own.
Yeah,
That's right.
In most cases, they're your franchisees. But
And it's, you would almost have to err so far on the other side to be believable that it would end up being overly negative versus overly positive, which just looks curated, which is artificial.
But what has worked,
but when you look at
I
Starwood,
think Starwood does this, I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody else does,
Starwood.
is to actually put a portal to TripAdvisor on their website, so you can see the live TripAdvisor reviews. And they said that was they got a lot of really good feedback on that, and they actually saw conversion rates increase, particularly on the hotels that had strong TripAdvisor ratings. So
that's what we've done too.
Yeah.
Well,
Marriott,
Marriott
don't you
does
guys too?
yeah, that makes sense. I
Yeah.
think.
Starwood's
And
actually
on the
transparency
posting
mobile-
their own reviews.
Even in the mobile device
Yeah.
with the hotel picture, that's
Right,
I mean,
reviews?
it's limited real
Well, they're not
estate.
writing
We
that.
have
They
to
have their own
pick
review
it.
engine.
That's
They only pick the good
Did
ones.
not sense.
No, we show everyone.
Filters out.
Yeah.
One thing I don't know, you guys are kind of an extension of that, because we're probably the smaller one here in the room, but one thing that we found, because each one of these kind of has its own little market segment that it plays to, but because we're not as large as some of the other players and we can't afford like TV advertising. One thing we haven't talked about is YouTube and using that as kind of our way to get commercial material out there. And we have it kind of reminds me of what you were just talking about. We've created this whole new job thing, social media coordinator, and we have our homegrown publisher, photographer, movie maker, type of thing. But they've been, within their following, they're, whether it's a thing that we're doing on pets or, whatever, event or marketing program is going on at that point. They seem to be very effective, at least for us to get our voice out in a medium and to an audience that we can't reach at a very effective price.
And isn't YouTube like the second biggest search
What's
engine?
that period? Yeah.
Or number one?
A billion video views a year.
And combining it with Twitter and those kind of things so people pick up
Yeah.
on it and
Absolutely.
know what's
Yeah.
going
And
on.
there have been cases, I can't remember which brand it was, but there was a 4-star hotel, I think it was in Taiwan, that the staff decided to put together a kind of a funny video on their own, and it went absolutely viral, and it was such an effective marketing tool. It was because they empowered the staff to do that, and the chain basically said, yeah, try it out and see what happens, and they've been now trying to replicate it at some of their other properties.
Do you use Facebook and Twitter, differently to send different types of messages out? And how do you use them, I guess, differently? Is one more for straight PR? Is one more for kind of better kind of personal engagement with your friends, I guess, or followers? Or is that more of as a public? Maybe Dasha can answer. So basically, they're all just, it's kind of like a.
Yeah.
Are you using Instagram, Pinterest, these newer types of tools too, or is it more focused just on the Twitter and Facebooks of the world, or the whole 9 yards?
Our brand is currently still evaluating social assets and kind of how they can enrich the overall guest experience and their interaction with the brand. But I personally see a lot of value in Pinterest. I think the conversation of imagery is becoming more prevalent and important, especially as we move through more adaptation of tablet use, and where the imagery is critical to that overall experience. Imagery speaks volume, and it's definitely an arena that we have to kind of figure out how our guests use those channels.
Right.
Do you do anything, I'm curious, Christopher, given extended stay nature, although not all your guests, I'm sure, like ours are at our extended stay brands, not everyone's staying longer than any others, but some are. Do you do anything around facilitating or coordinating communities of people at the hotel?
Yeah.
Because I would think that would be something to.
So it's something that we've done a little bit of, but we'll definitely do much more of it. I think that there's a great opportunity to use that digital platform to have a common conversation with individuals that are at a given property and have a very geo-local specific conversation about, what's going on, what's the game or whatever in the area that's going on. So absolutely, I think there's a huge play there, and especially for us, we don't have, the large common spaces,
Right.
so we can translate that conversation digitally and kind of be more broadband.
Yeah, I would think so.
Shifting a little bit now, how about the PMS? How is that evolving? What are you guys doing in that space? Are they becoming, like I said, more? I'll let you kind of take it from there. PMS. I'll just put it out there. How's that
Well,
evolving?
we're migrating to a cloud-based.
Everyone, yeah.
Is that what it is?
Everyone is.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's so expensive and difficult and complicated to have all that infrastructure on property.
Yeah.
And really the only way to go is to make it much lighter and more cloud-based. But I think also the way it adds value is starting to change as well. I mean, the transactional aspects of it will be more and more, I think, fulfilled through self-service channels. And
Right.
the insight and the data and property operations components of it are going to remain important, but there's no reason we need to have all that infrastructure on property.
On property, okay. Is that a huge expense going to the cloud, or is it?
Absolutely. Although long-term, obviously, it has to be a good business
it's lower.
case.
We
Yes.
moved to the cloud about 5 years ago,
Uh-huh.
and operating costs are lower.
Lower, right.
Absolutely.
So the upfront cost might be
Dispatches-
higher, but then.
There was an upfront cost,
Right.
yeah, but the dispatches are gone.
Right.
All we have is dumb terminals in the front desk now.
Gotcha.
So EMS is hosted center.
It also, in many cases, does challenge the old funding model because, the property owner was typically paying for the hard assets related to the property management system when it was on-prem. And now that it's moving up into the cloud, that becomes a corporate expense, so the chargeback models are sometimes complicated to work through.
I think it's given us all kinds of new capability where just the data, the interaction that's actually happening at the hotel, and we can aggregate that information real time to work towards kind of guest experience intelligence. We can drive revenue kind of dynamically at the hotel level and see what's going on. So it being that real time and having all of that available to us at the instant it occurs is valuable. We're still working through, okay, what are the key elements, you want to focus on, but it's a tremendous amount of information that we have accessible real time versus 24 hours later, or whatever it might be.
Right.
Yeah, and it's a challenge though, because there's so much information to capture, and with everything that we look at, we like to use what we call a passionately practical approach with everything, right? We want things as practical and streamlined as possible. And with the PMS, even from an end user perspective for the front desk agents, right, having a very streamlined user interface, with turnover and things like that, making it easier for an individual to come on board and use that asset, to communicate with our guests as they're checking in and during the duration of their stay is critical to us, right? But it's complex because there's just so much data, and how do you streamline that, but yet add that level of customization to the experience in that process? It's a challenge.
That's my little bit of a gripe with vendors in our space, that they still haven't got the importance of UI. With everything going on around you download any app today, I mean, it's all about the UI. And I just talked to a vendor, I won't name them, they came up with their greatest brand new app for managing hotel operation, not a PMS. And their screens were like a form. It was literally a form. And that's their brand new latest app launched just now, last year. It's really crazy because they're not getting that. I mean, everyone, all consumers, people are used to a different style of user interaction now.
For sure,
And our space, the vendors aren't getting it. I know some are, but for the most part, we're not.
One of the drivers towards centralized PMS has been the data, as you talk about. I'm curious, maybe the companies that are more involved in the franchise space can speak to this. I can see how you manage that in a corporate environment with corporate assets, corporate hotels, because you just centralize it and you manage it. But when you've got independent businesses, then there's certain things you can do for them, maybe at the central res or website level, as a service to your franchisees. But how do you teach the people at the hotel how do you teach, the 2-star independent hotel owner, at an 80-room hotel, how to actually use this effectively, or do you just leave that?
How to use a PMS?
How to use the data analytically? I mean, you're talking about the analytics,
And the
and
reports.
all the big chains are looking at the analytics, certainly for their corporate assets and for the things they do
Right.
corporately for their franchisees. But a lot of that benefit is decisions that need to be made by the individual franchisees. And how do you get that benefit? I mean, you're investing all this money in this capability, and if it doesn't connect the last mile to that independent owner, you're losing the benefit.
I think it comes back to usability. I mean, I'm sure we all have, our corporate intranet systems as strategic assets that are, one of the most important ways we train, communicate, we deliver information. But they weren't all built at the same time in one cohesive way with a single user experience that's highly intuitive. So I think, frankly, a big focus of ours is making those systems be as easy to use as possible, so that when I'm going to get, I'm a property owner that's going to get revenue insights about my property, competitive set, things like that, that it's easier to do that.
Yeah, and I think we got a feedback on that, push versus pull. So we got this, new portal launched 2 years ago with all the reporting they could possibly need, and very nicely designed UI too. But it's pull, and they got to go in, log into the system.
Absolutely.
They don't want that. What they're relying on still is a email blast that goes out every morning with their
Regular
numbers
interval.
in
It
email.
probably gets printed.
Right. I don't know what they do with it, but that's what they still rely on. And I think
Right.
where I see this, where we should take it, like pick up any app, any mobile app. Firstly, there's a mobile app. Secondly, it's text enabled, push notifications coming on your iPhone. Your rev bar yesterday went down, tanked.
Yeah.
Get your text message.
Right.
That's where we need to be.
Yeah.
If we're not there
I
yet.
agree with that.
So that's
Yeah.
where we was talking earlier
Yeah.
about the alerts and so forth, the
Yeah.
capabilities it provides. From a cloud perspective, it makes it very easy for me to deliver a message to the front desk at a very instant in time. And it could be a grouping of hotels in a market, it could be an individual hotel in a different place. It could be the phone if someone's,
Right.
registered. There's multiple ways now that I have to be able to, again, drive that behavior, at the hotel level. It's a really good point that you bring up, because a lot of the hoteliers they don't know, what do I do with this information, right? And to your point on usability, what we're working towards is weaving it into the system. So it makes recommendations, it does things that someone wouldn't normally see at a given
Right.
moment in time. You don't wanna go run the report, but it'll come up and give you a reference to something that you should go look at. And the other part of this is really trying to understand who at the hotel is actually making decisions. Because you may have a GM, but that GM actually runs 3 hotels or something like that. And you have your kind of head person running the hotel, but you don't know who it is at that moment in time. So we're working on some of that from an identification standpoint too. So.
And without actually putting a actual number on it, but for 2013, 2014, your technology budgets, these I'm assuming keep on increasing. Is that the case, or I mean, what are your budgets or spend on technology look like for this year and 2014?
Growing.
Growing.
Yeah, absolutely. We see the need to continue to invest in technology, be it our owned assets, our websites, our mobile platforms, PMS, technology internally, revenue management, et cetera, are all huge focuses for us in the upcoming years.
That's for the most part.
Well, I mean, I think, growing is gonna be the typical, because coming out of a down cycle
Sure,
and
yeah.
with some infrastructure that needs refreshing, I think, there's definitely a genuine growth. But I think it's growth from an investment mindset
Sure.
of, we want to do it so that longer term, our fixed costs of technology go
Right.
down. I mean, that's really what it's about.
Kind of just off that a little bit. How do you there's your technology group. How much do you guys work with sales, with marketing, with other executives? I mean, how much is it intertwined, or are you guys just kind of out in right field by yourselves and they say go ahead and do it? I mean, I'm sure there's kind of this almost communal effort. It has to be that way.
It's every day for me. All those groups.
Yeah.
Completely.
Even though I'm remote in Phoenix and a lot of those people are in Silver Spring, it's constant. Whether it's franchise sales or sales and marketing,
Right.
branding, whatever it might be.
Like, what is sales or marketing? What information do they need to know from you to make, to sell a group? I mean, is there information you give them that's necessary for them to,
Yeah, it frames, well, it's just around our loyalty program, so it frames a lot of things around marketing and promotions and things like that, relationship management, those types of things. How our hotels are, generally performing, it ties to LTR and, ADR and all the internal reporting. For franchise sales, it's more around, so where are the markets that we can go that we're not in today?
Right.
There's a lot of business intelligence that we develop around that capability.
I think what I see a lot of times is they assume that the infrastructure is there ready to roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you find out that, after the fact that, oh, there's no capacity to do what you want to do.
Right.
And that continues to be a problem. They make assumptions. They assume that it's been working and there's, unlimited capacity and the internet's free.
Yeah.
Our IT
That's-
is free.
Or IT
We
is
got
free.
rid of that concept. We don't charge.
That's
We
always
got rid of
been.
that concept.
Another question that kind of popped in my head during the break, I was thinking, I think it was yesterday where AP's Twitter got hacked into by someone, and they wrote something
yeah.
effective. Barack Obama's been injured in an
The
attack.
stock market takes over.
Yeah, and the stock market, came back up thereafter, but there was so how do you, and then there was the whole, I think, in Vegas and one of the shows, they were talking about how it's not easy, but people can hack these, with the keyless, get into someone's door, these things. I mean, how much of that is security and this kind of thing, security breaches, how much of that is part of your, your position and what you're doing at your companies?
I think for me, it's my number one concern actually right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Over
Number
everything
one
else.
concern.
Yeah.
I mean, there's initiatives,
For
but
sure.
concern, like what worries me
Mm-hmm.
is that, and we've been PCI compliant for 3 years, but still, when you hear about these things, I'm talking to other vendors.
Yeah.
We put lots of controls, but people still get in. So you're looking at more controls.
More, yeah.
Detection is more important than, is very critical. I
Yeah,
mean,
sure.
It's a big piece of it.
I was gonna say, these concerns always move, like, my concern 5 years ago was having all this data in all these different locations that wasn't really that secure.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's all in a single location, and now my concern is it's all in a single location, and if they do breach it,
Mm-hmm.
that's everything,
Yeah.
right? And you're just like,
It's a
okay.
different model.
Come on.
And I think the more high profile you are, like the Hiltons
Yeah.
and all the world, I think you've got to be more concerned. I have always hoped we're a little under the radar, but
Yeah.
just, we've seen patterns, we've seen attacks.
Mhm.
We caught them through our tool just 2 weeks ago. We
Yeah.
were hit
Yeah.
by someone just bombarding our, it wasn't a denial of service, it was under the radar. We had so we put in some very sophisticated tools that help us catch those patterns.
Right.
And it was true, and we had to block those IP addresses. So
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah.
stuff worries me, because it goes under the radar, it's not
Yeah.
extensive that you'll catch it
Right.
that easily.
Uh-huh.
But they were trying to get into our returns site.
Oh, wow.
They were trying to log in to our returns site, and we caught it and we killed it. But yeah, that's you gotta be very alert.
Yeah.
There's another aspect to security too that I'm starting to see more. I was on a conference call yesterday with one of the regional people from one of the major groups based in Asia. And I started thinking about the conversation because, we're used to bombings of hotels there. They're not used to that in the US, but the events last week in Boston certainly tell us that we should be, and there were several hotels that had to close. And there are technologies that can be used to prevent or reduce the likelihood of these things. I mean, facial recognition and other things that I think are starting to be deployed in hotels around the world, and probably are going to come here as well. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, we don't live in the secure world of our childhood anymore, and we have to be prepared for these threats, and technology can do it more effectively.
Yeah, because I thought after the bombings in 2008 in Mumbai and those, and then obviously what happened in Boston, right next to was it the Fairmont that was right outside?
Fairmont and the Mandarin
Yeah.
and one other, I think.
Fairmont, Mandarin. I I think a smaller boutique.
The Lennox.
The Lennox,
Yeah,
yeah.
Lennox.
So, all right. Well, we're wrapping up. So I thought to end it on one of these kind of questions where you can put on your prognosticator hat. But in terms of technology, basically, what will the hotel look like 10 years from now? And we can go around the room. You got something? You have to go first. I mean, 10 years from now, what do you think the hotel will look like from a technology standpoint? Maybe even so much what you would like it to look like.
I think in 10 years it will not be surprising where this is my everything, where this is my check-in, this is how I get into my door, this is how I select what I want to watch on TV, this is how I turn on the water in my bathroom and set the temperature. I see the use of mobile becoming even more woven into everyday functionality of our business in 10 years from now.
I totally agree with all of that, and I'm sure we all will, but I'll say also hotels, especially our resorts and destination properties, will also continue to become a respite from all of those things. So offering the connectivity and the technology, but also offering people a way to turn that off and enjoy something else is a core part of our mission, and
Sure.
I think that balance will continue to be important. I hope so anyway.
I think that the self-service piece will shift more. I'm sorry, not the self-service, but the personal touch service will switch to personal service rather than someone, behind the desk with their face down at a computer. That it will become more natural. To your point, we will get better at the user interface and the way things work. Apple's kind of set the standard for that. I'm not sure it's the only standard for the future, but there's better ways to make things easier, where you can check yourself in and check yourself out. There's all kinds of security issues there that we have to deal with from a global standpoint for us. But so I think it'll be more streamlined for the guests and the consumers, and that in-room technology. I think it's just going to shift to whatever the consumer has. We'll have that piece of glass in the hotel room if we really need it. It should probably be the phone too, because a soft phone, you don't use voice over IP. It's very easy to use a soft phone, things like that. So I think there will be big transitions.
I agree with what was said. I mean, the other aspect of it, I think you need some sort of flexibility in the guest rooms today, which maybe not technology, but wouldn't it be nice if you could have a hotel that we have inventory? We have so many kings, so many doubles. Wouldn't it be nice if you could reconfigure them all? I mean, the flexibility potentially could be there. But I think in terms of the technology, there was something was said last week. I can't remember the exact date, but you do remember at HTF. The keynote speaker made a comment, and this is why it's hard to answer this question. He said there are people going into college today that will have jobs that don't exist yet.
Yeah, that's true.
So to answer the question, what are we going to have in the hotel rooms? I mean, and same thing with this thing. This was a device that we didn't know we needed.
Yeah.
Right.
So what's the next iPad
That's
that
fun.
we have to support?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe it's a hologram, or maybe it's some sort of visual interaction that I can actually see a hologram of my son, in the room with me. I don't know. I mean, it's.
But we won't be arriving in space cars.
No.
The Jetsons still is.
Beam me up.
And we're hoping travel doesn't become
Really, I was
obsolete
planning
also.
to.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is where I wish I was Christopher
Yeah, I
Thomas
know.
More and had answered the question first. I should say ditto and be done. But to go along with that, when I'm kind of leaning towards Josh's comment, which is, I'm curious at what point it's like too much, and whether we, at some point have kind of a backlash and these things just don't, you'll go to the hotel and it won't have that much. Hotels always had like way more technology. You went to a hotel and to see all the whiz-bang stuff. Now we're where most of us have more whiz-bang stuff that are in the hotels, and pretty soon we may go to the hotel to get away from all this stuff, and it'll be the respite that
Yeah.
you're looking for. I don't know.
So I just answer a question, 10 years from now, I go back 10 years. So imagine, all of you imagine your hotels in 2003. How much has changed? Not much. Not much. From the hotel room, it's
Yeah.
still the same room. It's still got the bed, it's got the shower.
Right.
So I think that won't change.
Right.
It's going to be the same. There'll be better beds. They are better beds.
What about public
certainly.
spaces though? Those
Right.
are changing though. Those
Public,
are
yeah, I'm thinking
Yeah.
of the room
Okay.
primarily, right? So I think technology will be there. I
Yeah.
think bandwidth will be like electricity. It'll be free everywhere. It'll be just available, good bandwidth.
Right.
And technology will be like, to your point, it won't be in your face, in my view. It's going
Yeah.
to be with you, and it's going
Right.
to be behind the scenes, pre and post. All the system reservation systems, all that. I think they'll keep improving
Gotcha.
along with the rest of the industry.
Mhm.
That's how I see that.
2 points that have been made that I would have made first. Yours, the mobile device controlling it, I think that's right. And I think the comments about the bed and the shower, they're still actually probably the most important things in the room, and those won't change. But I do see two things that probably will change that are more significant. One is, I think we will be seeing primarily a fiber network backbone at that point, because that'll last for the next 50 years, and copper is running out of lifetime, and it's more expensive anyway at this point. Number two is, and I think this will be an increasing trend, is I think we will see smarter guest room controls and energy management aspects. I think the green movement isn't slowing down, the cost of energy isn't going down, and energy is the second most controllable cost second largest controllable cost in a hotel, and 20 to 30% of it is typically wasted. Doesn't serve the guest, it doesn't serve the hotel, it doesn't serve the owner. So let's get rid of that. And there are technologies certainly that can do that today, and they're starting to gain acceptance. And the only other thing I would add to all of it is inductive charging.
On that
I don't know which one, but